go through these things and forget it. Okay. So I guess just kind of set the scene, give us a little background about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get into filmmaking?
Cool. So I grew up mostly in the United States. My parents are from Europe, from communist Europe. So from old Yugoslavia and old Czechoslovakia. So I grew up born in the States, but I spent all my summers in communism as a kid. So I kind of grew up one foot in capitalism in Chicago, actually, Aaron, and one foot in Chicago, middle America, and one foot in communist Europe every summer. So I'm one of those weird kids. I started making films when I was 8 with my childhood elementary school friend.
Well, what was your first film?
So the first film Chris and I did was about, it was sort of like a mystery film. It was me waking up in the morning and weird things happening, like my toothpaste and toothbrush would meet and put toothpaste on, and I would be brushing my teeth, and I would go down the stairs without walking, then my cereal bowl would fill up, and then I would just be eating. So, and then at the end of this little short 3-minute, it was Super 8 film, I took a nap, and in the distance of the room on the piano keyboard came out this little kind of mythical claymation creature, and stepped on one of the keys in the keyboard, and that's when I woke up, but I wasn't sure what happened. So that was the first silly idea. Yeah.
Right. So from a young age, your mind was already creating all these different sort of imaginary scenarios.
Yeah, and storytelling. And then, growing up between communism and capitalism, every time we would go to Eastern Europe in communism, we'd have to explain what America is like, what capitalism is like. And whenever we would come back from communist countries, spending our summers there, we'd have to explain what communism is like. And both sides didn't know a lot about each other. And so I guess from an early age, I was always bridging cultures, trying to figure out where someone was in terms of their worldview, and then how to meet them. So whenever I was talking to Americans, I would think, what is their worldview? What is common with them? And then trying to figure out ways of connecting, whether it's sports or art. And that would be my into explaining a different culture. So I've sort of been doing that. Went to school in California, lived in New York, then in San Francisco. Probably back to filmmaking when my brother and I finished college. Some people here know this. We avoided graduate school for a few years, which pissed off our father. But we made a film called Genghis Blues that we shot in a place called Tuva, which is in far southern Siberia, just north of the Mongolian border. And it was a little documentary we wanted to make when we were in junior high school. We heard about this place called Tuva and throat singing. And when we got out of college, we figured before we grow up, we want to go to Tuva and shoot a documentary. And that ended up being Genghis Blues.
And that was, I looked it up before. It was in the 90s, right? That's when you guys did it.
Yes, we finished it. We shot it in 95 and we premiered it at Sundance in 99.
Gotcha. Amazing. So can you speak about some of the other films that are featured on your bio? So you've got Happy on there. I know you spoke to me about it before, but what's that one about?
So Happy, so we made Genghis Blues, which is about a blind blues musician and Tuvan throat singing, and it's a buddy film. Then we made Beyond the Call, which is about 3 guys who go around the world to war zones delivering humanitarian aid. And they're ex-Vietnam vet guys, paratrooper medics who saw the suffering of people in Vietnam and the inability for NGOs to help. And so they started helping local people back then and never stopped. And they're now in their 70s and 80s, still traveling the world doing humanitarian work. And then Happy was sort of a diversion from our usual films, which are very character driven. And it's basically about the science and practice of happiness around the world. And that one was very strange because our other 2 films are far more critically acclaimed than Happy. But Happy is by far the most popular film we've ever made and most well-known. So,
what's something interesting that you discovered throughout making Happy about how different cultures or different people find happiness or experience happiness?
Well, I think, something I always knew in my heart from traveling around the world and living between cultures, and Happy really just kind of showed it up front, and we shared it, is that, you know, especially in this time of the world being so divided, so polarized, that basically the same things make us all happy. The wonderful thing is the different ways that's represented in the world, but the fundamentals are the same. You know, community, but what kind of community? Different around the world. You know, sharing, giving, same, but different around the world based on people's needs and what people can give. You know, friendship, you know, how different cultures express friendship, how different cultures cultivate friendship. Same fundamental, very fascinating expressions of it. So, yeah.
Great. So how long have you been on the road? I know you mentioned this in our own little group chat, but just so everyone gets a sense of where is actually home for you.
Yeah, that's always an interesting question. I've been pretty much perpetually on the road for a decade now. I gave up my place in Los Angeles 11 years ago now. Because before that, I was pretty much on the road for the decade before that. Still had a place in LA, which is kind of a waste. And so I've just been living out of my suitcase for over a decade. And what was nice about giving up my place in LA is that I would go somewhere and shoot a project. I would meet amazing people. They would say, "Oh, Adrian, you should stay. Well, we shouldn't, you know, we want to introduce you to this place and that place." But after about a month, I'd feel guilty. I should go home. I'm paying rent and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so when I gave up my place in Los Angeles, I was free. I never had to look back. I only was present and forward. And I thought that I would do this for maybe a year or two as an experiment, social experiment. What's it like not to have a home? It's awesome. You know? But I'm very fortunate, you know, like my brother and I, we used to make film. Well, we still make films together, but we used to make them more together before. And we used to just live on the road. But, you know, he has a wonderful wife and 2 wonderful kids and 3 wonderful dogs and a lovely house. And so his world is a little bit different than mine is these days. But
Right.
yeah, pretty much 10 years.
Do you see yourself staying on the road forever, or until when? When are you going to call it quits?
Yeah, not sure yet. Not sure.
Okay.
I'm realizing, I mean, I'll say like I just turned 51. So I realized at some point I think I need to grow up. So I basically live like a PhD student. You know, I live on a very small stipend and I just travel the world following my curiosities and creating projects. Those like my little PhD papers or my films. So yeah, at some point I guess I'll grow up. But
Okay. Are you able to share with people what you're working on in Manila?
so here in Manila, I was working on a project. I did a project here in Manila a couple of years ago about a very horrible military debacle where 44 Filipino soldiers were killed trying to get this guy Marwan, who was the most wanted sort of militant in Asia. And so that turned into another project about what I'm doing now is about the RAM movement here in the Philippines. It's the Reform Armed Forces movement that did the coups against Marcos and then 2 coups against Corazon Aquino, the following president of the Philippines. So we're doing that as a military one. Then we just did a short one about doctors here in the Philippines, about the frontline workers. And now I'm about to start another one, but we haven't yet finished the first one, but that's the nature of it, about farmers, about the role that local farmers have done to help keep this mega city of 20 million plus fed through this whole quarantine period. So, yeah.
Amazing. And you've been in Manila, you said, since February, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I arrived in February and by March it all came to a close. And then, yeah, since then.
Okay, great. So it's a bit of background. I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the theme of transit. So as I mentioned before, you know, we often think of transportation or sort of this endless motion of getting from one place to the next. And people often say that Hong Kong itself is a very transient city. and it's a sort of a stop in their journey and not necessarily the final destination. So being in transit and being on the road for so long yourself, I guess what's something that you've discovered about yourself, or about life in general, that you can share with us?
Well, one of the things that I realized, not having a physical mooring or grounding in my life, like I don't have a home, I don't have somewhere that I go back to, I don't have a tether. And so what that has allowed me to realize is that, I mean, the old saying, wherever I am is my home. And it's allowed me to focus on developing that awareness and that sensibility that, I'm here in Manila right now, and I've been to places like Afghanistan, Syria, South Sudan, Iraq, where wherever I was super dangerous, and there was like barrel bombs and snipers. And so, here in Manila, this is nice. It's fine. I mean, this has been the longest quarantine of any city in the world with COVID. We're still under curfew at nighttime. We're just starting to be able to leave the city. Most stores are still closed. Public transportation is barely working. So, so it's been quite restrictive, but yet it's fine.
So yeah, so I mean, do you think taking a pause physically where you're at geographically has sort of brought new ideas or new opportunities to your thinking and to your inspiration?
For sure. For sure. I mean, I haven't had to pack my suitcase in 7 months. I don't even have to think about that. So I've been able to just settle into a new rhythm, which is wonderful. I mean, that's one of the things about traveling is when I'm working on different projects with different teams and different situations, we're in deserts, we're shooting in water, you have to quickly adjust to a situation, but it's going to be tenuous and it's going to be short. But here I've been able to just settle in. And one thing which I love to do a lot is to go inside. And so I've been meditating, I've been exercising, I've been learning new skills, I've been researching new projects that I've been wanting to do, with no excuses. No, but I got to leave in a week, or, I only have 2 days here, I only have a few hours. I have as much time as I want. So it's been a huge, huge blessing, a huge positive thing. But I've chose to see it that way. And I talk to my friends who are just chomping at the bit to get out, and I'm like what I wrote in my Facebook post back in April, this is a unique situation, but when things get back to normal, which they will, what will we wish we had done when we were here? And I try and bring my dreams into my present rather than always chasing them.
Right. Interesting. So, excuse me. So what's the most sort of valuable thing that you've learned, something that you hold of great value during your travels and experience, having interacted with all these different kinds of people, different cultures, different way of life? So if we reverse your question, that you miss about traveling.
Well, probably the thing that continues to reinforce in my awareness of the world from traveling is that we have far more in common than we have difference. And that's a great starting point. And whenever I travel the world, I'm always meeting new people, and I'm tuned to look for what we have in common, whether it's a beard, long hair, same shoes, same music we're listening to. That is the starting point. And from there, what we don't share in common is the fascination. That's the thing that draws me in. What are those shoes? What's that music? What's that painting you have on the back of your wall? Things like that. And what I found is, while I've been staying in one place, is I've kind of turned that into myself. I've turned that way of traveling externally into looking at myself. So when I doubt myself, the last 7 months, I'm doubting myself. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. Did I spend the last 6 hours correctly? Am I researching the right project? I allow those experiences that I've learned outside from traveling to help guide me inside to be more comfortable about myself, be more confident, not doubt myself, give myself a break. When I don't work out for a few days, it's okay. It's okay. So that's been a great learning experience, to take all my travel there's that saying, the external world is only there to help us learn about the internal world. And the last 7 months have allowed me to really take all the wealth of experience and knowledge that I've garnered from travels and turn it inward and kind of balance myself. It's been great.
So one comment is, I don't think you're the only one who's not exercised for 5 days in COVID. So don't worry, we're all in common with you there.
Thank you.
What's something that you've realized about yourself internally then in that process?
That I still have a long ways to go. When you have time to look at yourself. I mean, for me, that happens when I'm in war zones and we're being bombed or it's very dangerous, and you realize that flash of your life might just about happen now. You sort of reevaluate yourself. One of the things I've realized is that, I don't always have to, I'm a white male American firstborn, blah, 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 all that stuff, pressure. But to just relax and enjoy the little things. I think that this COVID might slow me down a little bit. And that's a good thing. It's helped me to really appreciate, to take things a little bit slower. Because it's easy to just travel the world and you're always going to a new place. It's always new, but to sit with yourself is it can be dangerous and scary. And, but it's been really good. So that's been a huge takeaway, is just getting to know myself, and it's been fun.
So when you do feel all of those things, getting to know yourself is a little bit hard. When you do feel all of those things like anxiety, doubt, how do you, and you're by yourself, right? In quarantine, you can't really go anywhere or lock down. How do you deal with that?
By just being with it. It's like being on a long hike and you realize you've chosen too difficult a path, or it's too long beyond your capabilities. And you can either sit there and quit, or you just keep going. And so it's been wonderful. I can't run. I can't just say, I'm gonna go on that, trip. Yeah, I'll take that project. I just have to sit with it. And it's just like exercising, you don't think you can do another push-up, but you do, and God, you feel so good. So these are these internal exercises that I've been doing. And it's cool. I feel like, it's really empowering. It's very fun.
That's great. Guys, real quick, if anyone's got questions, go ahead and start bringing them in. I just want to start incorporating it into the talk because I am conscious of time. But my next question, Adrian, is how do you find inspiration in the projects that you do? They seem super interesting, and at the same time, a little bit different as well.
Yeah, every project is different. It's fascinating. When my brother and I made Genghis Blues, and we got all the attention we did for it, everyone was asking, what's our next project? And every project we would pitch, they're like, so it's a music documentary? And they really pigeonholed us. And it was really an eye-opener how that happens. For me, my projects are, one, character-driven, has to have a great character. I don't do issue-oriented films, I do character films. 2, it has to be a place that I'm fascinated by. 3, it has to be something that I think I can contribute something new to. So like I'll meet people and they're amazing, and I think maybe this could be a documentary. Then I do some research and I realize I can't really bring anything new to it. And then I also have to see for myself about promoting the film. Where can this film go? Because I'm always thinking of the full arc of the film, not just making, but also how to get it out in the world. And so that's something that I think about, and I guess not a lot of people do, which I think is one reason why our films have been successful.
So we've got a question here that says, from Erin from Chicago. She said, I've had trouble making a schedule. Do you make one?
I do. And I break it every day. But I get closer and closer. And then the thing is, when I do break it, it gives me, because I don't go anywhere, I think, 1, why did I put it on the list? And 2, why did I break it? And so every little moment is so much more precious, so much more. It's a gift that I don't think about it and then I have to run to a meeting. But I think about it and I could be like, I put on that list because I think I need to do it. Why do I think I need to do that? Well, because someone told me, or because it's good for me. Well, if it's good for me, then why don't I do it? I'm being a coward, or I'm being lazy, or I'm lying to myself, or, it's all introspection. It's fabulous. So I love, like, just like when people see my films, I love when they say nice things, but I love when they say things that they didn't understand or didn't get or didn't agree with. That's when I learn. And so I do those same things with myself. Why didn't I do it? Why did I lie to myself? So yeah, I mean, I like when I stick to my, I write 10 things I want to do today. I do 7, but the ones that really fascinate me are the 3 that I didn't do. Why is that? And that's been just a gift to be able to spend time with that.
That's so interesting because myself, and I feel like people naturally would not want to understand those things, or if it's something negative about work that they've done, I mean, you kind of want to hear about it, but it's also a bit hard to digest. Not a lot of us embrace it, I feel, as much as you do. And do you think that's just from understanding that everyone has different perspectives and they're coming from sort of different viewpoints around the world?
I think it comes, for me, I'm very fortunate. I grew up with amazing parents, and I grew up playing a lot of high-level sports, and I had great coaches. And the great coaches were the ones who would, applaud us when we did well, but then we would spend most of our time talking about what we didn't do well. And they would couch it in such a way that it drew me into that, rather than ignoring, and it's not me, it's that guy, and whatever. So that's where I think that comes from. And then, almost 50 years of practice, when I would ignore stuff, they would come back again. I would make the same mistake. The same people I worked with, why am I working with that person? I don't think about it because they have lots of awards or whatever. So, I don't want to repeat mistakes. I mean, life is super short. So.
Right. Okay, one thing I want to ask is, when things start opening up again, people can start traveling. You've talked about how you deal with yourself and think about things internally when you're stationed, right? But when we do start traveling again, what's something that you would like to recommend or suggest people to be more aware of when they're going to a different country? Whether it's hiking or just going for a nice holiday, what's something that you would like them to be more aware of?
Well, I think one thing that we've all learned is to have kind of self-tolerance, living by ourselves in these small situations, and just to extend that out. I'm so bad at this advice stuff because I always feel like I'm just like a student, just barely learning. But, I don't know that answer. Let's go to another one. We can come back to it.
Okay. So James from Hong Kong is asking, will you leave Manila as soon as things open up and when your documentaries are complete?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I haven't really shared much of this, but I'm debating going back to the States to vote at the end of this month, and coming back in January. Or I vote, hi Sarah, or I vote from here. I mean, I'm definitely voting. But yeah, once it opens up, like literally the whole world is possible. Like the plan for this year was supposed to be shoot here until mid-March, Japan for a wedding, then travel around Japan for a couple weeks. Then I was going to be in Hong Kong. Then I was going to be in Bali. Then I was going to be in Bangkok. Then I was going to be in Europe for June, July, August. Then I was going to probably be in Latin America around this time, and then home for Christmas. Well, that all changed.
Wow.
So, I still have to get to Bali. I still have to go to Japan. I still have to get to Hong Kong. I do have to get to Europe. So I don't know where I go after this. I mean, I realize it sounds so weird, but yeah, that's my life.
Okay. I can't even keep up with your schedule, let alone like thinking about booking flights and all those things.
It's always one-way tickets. That's one thing which has been amazing. That one-way tickets are almost the same price as round trips. So I haven't bought a round trip ticket in years.
Right. We've got a question from Joya from, I want to say that's Boston, BOS.
Boston.
I think it's Boston. Okay. She's saying, what creative tools do you use the most when you need to get a ton of ideas out quickly, when it's time to sit down and sort of sketch a specific scene or an idea? Do you use like notebook, back of a napkin, an app? What is it?
Awesome question. I am super old school. So I just use a pad and a paper. That's always my starting point. And then what I do actually is then I take photographs of it and I email it to myself, so that if I lose it, there it is. I can always, because there's times I have lost papers, things have gotten wet on, ferries or whatever. So I'll always take photos of my sketches or my notes even. And then that's what 16-hour plane flights are for. I sit there and then I'll transcribe them into my laptop or something like that. But I always have paper with me and I'm always sketching.
Right. That's great. I see some comments on there. Nice analog writing, good stuff. Can you talk about about the things that you're doing with the election?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
not go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, no,
with the election.
Rabbit hole, but like I'm basically it's been 20-hour days for the last 4 months. I'm basically by 8 in the morning or 8 at night here, I'm talking to the United States all night. And then I usually sleep between 6 and 8 in the morning Manila time. Then I work all day here. And I usually sleep between about 3 and 6 in the evening here. And then I have dinner and then I start talking to the States in the morning. And I'm just working with different friends of mine around the United States on messaging, on how to get out the vote, how to engage different audiences. So yeah, a lot of get out the vote stuff.
What we talked about, that message that you're trying to get specifically for voting. Can you share with people what that message is? Just so for people in the States.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the things that we realize is that one person, one vote is not enough to overcome this existential threat. It really has to be one person plus 10. So, so many people have voted already. Now we need to get other people to vote and reach out. And one of the things that we're doing in the States with groups of my friends is we're not reinventing the wheel. If you're part of a canasta group, if you're part of a running group, if you're part of a whatever group you are, painting group, movie group, that group of people, we have to make sure that they all go out and vote. So it's 1 plus 10. It's my vote plus 10 other people that I know, make sure that they vote. And then, people have been doing great stuff. I mean, Sarah's been doing great stuff in Texas to work with organizations to, lend a helping hand, lend our resources to getting out the vote. But it's super exciting what's happening in America. Oh, it feels so good after months of work to see the lines and lines of people. So, and, my friends in Hong Kong, you guys, all the struggles that you have had and in other places in the world, like we're all in this together. It's great.
Do you guys have like a community of documentary filmmakers where you're like on a WhatsApp group and you just trade ideas? Or are you guys pretty like isolated sort of thing?
Well, one thing which has been interesting is, as I travel around the world and I'm in a region of the world, I'll put the word out to a bunch of my documentary friends and producers at BBC and National Geographic and stuff. And then they'll hire me to fly, I'm in Manila, they'll fly me to Indonesia, or I'll fly somewhere else, Australia, and shoot. But now we're all locked down. And so what we did back in March was we just kind of put pins on a map of what country everyone is at. And so if someone needs stuff shot here in the Philippines, I was their go-to person because we couldn't move around. So that's been an interesting adaptation.
Right. Do you think that'll sustain after lockdown?
No, I think we'll all just be back on the road. But one thing which has been great, just being in the Philippines for a while, is I usually have my own crew of people that I work with here, locals. But because I've been hired to work on other projects, I've met a lot more people in the Philippines. So now my base of friends and colleagues and collaborators is much broader, which has been a huge asset. It's been wonderful.
Very nice. So I think time-wise, we just want to have maybe a couple more questions. Joe Chim from Hong Kong has asked, Adrian mentions he always thinks about how his films get out into the world. So what was that in the past before social media, all these digital tools? Was it just film festivals, distributors, versus now? What is it that you use? Do you feel digital media has enabled you to connect more with your audience?
Again, the approach is the same. The tools have changed. So the approach is the same in that everyone who we even spoke to, I mean, we could do a whole Zoom on this, but the vast majority of people that I speak to about my films trying to make them are failures. They won't fund it. They can't help us or whatever. the twist to that is that they may think that they've gotten rid of us, but they're not part of the team, and that we treat them as such. So we keep them in the loop about what we're doing and things like that. Back in the day, that was pretty much only physically done. Whereas now, digital tools have allowed us a much easier path to continue that relationship. So that once the film comes out, we have this huge group of people around the world who have a feeling that they've been part of it, even though they've technically done nothing, except for show interest once. And so in that way, technology has been an exponential leverage for a very old technique of personal relationships and relationships over time. Because, you know, my films take 2-3 years to make. So over those 2-3 years, we've had 5 or 6 or 8 touch points with them. You know, hey, I'm shooting in your neighborhood again. Hey, here's the trailer. Hey, here's a great new interview we did. So when the film finally comes out, I want to say it's because they want to, or it could just be guilt that they feel like they should be part of the distribution. You know, they'll send out an email, they'll invite us to do a screening and things like that. So, so technology hasn't changed anything in terms of the fundamentals. It's just allowed a much broader reach and a much more ease of developing these relationships.
Right. So Prakar from Mumbai, who was in your breakout group, is asking, Prakar is also I believe a documentary filmmaker. He said, how do you overcome procrastination and shoot the story that you really love?
Well, that's the thing. I have to really love it. I mean, I turn down 90% of the projects that come my way. I don't take them on as the director. I mean, I'll find projects that I love, but I don't love them that much. And so I'll, let's say, be the shooter, or I'll do the consulting or something like that. But I don't do any project that I don't love, that I go to sleep thinking about, that I wake up in the morning thinking about. And even if I find myself in a project, you know, like Prakar, you're doing this thing about vaccinations and stuff like that in India, you know, maybe that's not your number one thing, but you know it's a great thing. And so I just find wonderful things in it to keep me going, you know, whether it's the greater good idea, or it's that one amazing nurse or doctor, you know, that one, you know, I get chills just thinking about it, because those are things that have inspired me. Or, you know, that one amazing patient, you know, that family, that mother. And so I get up every morning to shoot for her. I get up every night and keep editing for her, you know. So I find something to keep me going every day. And, you know, before you know it, you're there, you know. And then you start showing, you know, your trailers, you show them little clips of it, and you just see the joy, especially for people who don't normally have a voice, you know, to be their voice. I mean, for me, it's such a motivating thing. So that's what keeps me going. I find something to keep me going. Even though the system doesn't want me to do it, the financiers have backed out, it doesn't matter. It's for that one person. I always find that one person.
Thanks, Adrian.
It's tough what we do. God, I don't do this for the money or the fame, or, you know, I do it for that one person. And the hope that that person's voice through my work is able to be of benefit, of service, of inspiration to somebody else. And I'm just the conduit, and the person who's super lucky to have been born in the United States with resources, you know, because I could have been born in communist Europe and had the first 20 years of my life completely stolen from me. But I wasn't. And I got to America, not because I did it, because my parents did it. So I leverage my resources as a gift to them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Sorry. Yeah, beautiful. No, that's great. Sorry, just conscious of time, but last question is, what we like to ask is sort of, what's the gift that you want to give to our audience, that you want to leave them with, metaphorically, obviously, whether it's advice or, you know, just anything from your experience?
I think, you know, in these days where we're so divided, and you know, a lot of people here from Hong Kong, and I absolutely love Hong Kong. And, you know, to Peter, who's always my generous host in Hong Kong, is that, you know, we really are more alike than we are different. And our differences have been used as a weapon against us, to divide us, to weaken us. And I think if we realize, you know, when you travel and you have wonderful experiences that you did not plan, those are because differences came to you and you realize that we're connected through them. And so, you know, I hope that our time here together just is another little inspiration, little energy to, when we go out and someone says, oh, they're different, you know, see that as like an opportunity, not only to connect in some big way, but as a gift to ourselves, to be able to learn from somebody else, to learn their perspective, to connect with their struggles, and to find a way forward together. And that's why a lot of people say, Adrian, why do you travel the world? It must be so hard. And yes, it is. But what I get in return is so valuable, so powerful, that the difficulties are irrelevant. So may this time help remind us of that. So when we go forward tonight and tomorrow and we see something that we don't know or don't think we like, to just pause for a moment and say, I wonder what there is.
Beautiful. That's perfect way to end it. Thank you so much, Adrian. How can we follow you, your adventures, and see what you're up to next?
I'm so bad in social media. I have an Instagram account, Adrian Belic, Instagram, that I haven't been on very much, but I hope to soon. I have a Twitter account that I haven't been on very much, but I hope to soon. I have to get a website going at some point, but I haven't yet. And I mean, I guess I have my Facebook page, but it's quite private. So, you know, if you guys get in touch with me, send me a message to say, hey, we met on this, and it's also Adrian Belic. We can get on that, but that's usually very private. I usually don't do this, but it's because Diane that I'll say, you know, just go Adrian Belic at whatever on Facebook, and just send me a message that we met here, because then I'll add you, and that's where I have most of my conversations. But I do have to get on Instagram more. But yeah, Adrian Belic on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Terrific. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it's great always chatting with you. Every time it's always something new. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. I wish we had more time. I wish we were all in the same room and you guys could spend the night and we could just hang out all night. But I hope to.
It was great to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. And everyone, if you want to just stay connected with other people that you met today, you can put your LinkedIn in the chat box, or however you want to connect.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you all very much.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Enjoy.
If you're in Hong Kong.
Thank you. Take care, Mama.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Cool. I think that was okay.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great.
Can't believe you made me cry.
It was so fun. Oh, sorry. That's okay.
That's because I care. I love what you do, and you know.
We love what you do. That's why we had you here and share with everyone. Thank you so much. It's been great, especially peeling back all of the layers, showing your emotions, and just sharing with everyone something that we don't experience in our own lives, right?
Yeah. Well,
really
I think things we do, we just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
We do, like when I have time to be with you know, when we had time to be together and have dinner and talk about stuff, and you know, we met the wonderful woman who worked at the front desk, who knew the chef, who happened to be from America. And this whole adventure turned out, right?
I love that you find these little happenings and turn them into a big story, because those are things that I would never think about, you know?
But it happened, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't have to go on some exotic trip to South Africa and whatever.
Yeah.
Just wherever we were open. I mean, that's one of the things I remember is when I was in college, I was encouraging a lot of my friends to travel. And most of them didn't, they were too busy or whatever. But some did. And I remember they used to come back and kind of fall into a little depression, because, you know, I would encourage them to go on, you know, they want to go to Japan and learn something. They want to go to Brazil and learn capoeira. They would go and they had an amazing time, and they would come back. And, you know, after a few weeks, they're kind of in a depression. And and because they're not doing these new things. And I remember telling them, you know, to bring, like, why was it so interesting where they were? Because they saw it with new eyes.
Right. Yeah.
That's
true, yeah.
the only trick. So we went to that restaurant, right? I've been in Hong Kong many times, love Hong Kong. Not been in that restaurant, but who cares? Been in tons of restaurants. But in that moment, I chose to see it. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Where are you from? What's going on? What's on their shirt, you know? And in sharing myself rather than being, you know, because being an American, sometimes you have to be a little bit cautious in places I go. So I'm a Canadian from Calgary, which all of us Americans who've ever traveled internationally, we know that old trick. But you know, to share, yeah, I'm from Chicago too, or you know, I make films too, or and then you develop that, because to tip the scale from being reserved to being open, the barrier is infinitely thin. You know,
Yeah.
it's super thin. And so, and here's the other thing, from a totally rational perspective, what is my cost to engaging with someone, giving someone a compliment, asking them a question, right? Nothing.
Yeah,
Return
exactly.
on that investment, infinite. You know, it could even be like a free dessert or whatever else if you want to be really technical about it.
Yeah,
But it's infinite. So,
definitely.
because some people think that I do this because whatever, I'm some dreamer. No. I look very precisely at it if you wish. You know, to give a compliment is nothing. To ask a question, a genuine open-ended question, costs nothing. So if they look at me and they're like, oh, go away, they're fine. I lost nothing. But if they're like, oh my God, thank you. You know, that's my grandmother's brooch. You know, oh, this hat is my hat, you know, that I got in school. What's the insignia? Blah, 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 blah. The other thing is people love to talk about themselves.
That's true. I've realized that. That's true.
Right? So you just toss out a little genuine question, and you're genuine, you're sincere, you're focused. Oh my God, what comes back is crazy. That's why I'm never bored.
I
It's
think
like,
people, yeah, I was gonna say, I think people are maybe like hesitant because they're afraid of not, I don't know, like being judged or something.
That's the question. What are you afraid of? Just like now, I look at my list. Why do I not do these 3 out of 10 things? What
Yeah.
am I afraid of? So, you know, I've been
Hey, Adrian.
hello.
Hey, I'm working on a podcast that the baby's trying to get out, but it's on the Mississippi Delta Blues trail travel. And yeah, it's hard to get those bluesmen because they want money. And their story is all about how I worked in or was in the church, and then I found the blues, and then I chased women, and I can't get their music. So it's, you know, I've talked to some academics, I've talked about the food, I'm talking about how the teddy bear was made and all that. But yes, it's hard. You know, I've never done true documentary. And I mean, I worked at Marketplace at NPR and NPR West, but I mean, doing audio and doing it all and being a producer, I've never done this. And this talking to people is easy, but doing the rest of this is just, oh my goodness. And so I know what you're talking about. And especially in Mississippi, you can get on their front porch and they're just like, hey, yeah,
Incredible.
you know, it's great. I mean, and you know, this blues man, he didn't even know who I was, and he picked up my cell phone and said, hey, you know, and he wants to do face to face, which I can't do right now. But I mean, yeah, it's Jimmy Duck Holmes, and he is one of the last juke joints in Mississippi. And I was like, woo, you know.
Do it.
So,
But
I don't know when I'll get to Mississippi, but yeah.
But here's the thing, it's not as hard as we think. It's really not. You know, break it down. I mean, what are the barriers to entry? These days, it's very little. You know, you just,
it's amazing. Yes. How, and that's what I want to say is you're right about trying to change or tell people's voices, which is what I started out doing. It changed up with the virus. The tape I had was my thesis was on repurposed gas station food in Mississippi because of the tobacco going down. All these chefs took over the old gas stations because the location's great, all this. So I had to change it up because the business side and this and that. But I had all this tape from 8 and 5 years ago. And so, yeah, I'm using old tape and updating some of this. But I had all the people, I had all the contacts, and even I've called other people. And yeah, I mean, today with all this texting and stuff, Mississippi, they'll still pick up the phone.
I know.
That's what's kind of great about
love
it.
the South. Yeah.
And that's what I say. It's an iPhone. Pick up the phone.
Totally. And now, you do FaceTime and all this stuff. I mean, do that thing. This is the other thing which I often get questions about filmmaking. People say, I'll give a talk about filmmaking at some university or some film festival. And they'll say, oh, but Adrian, you're white and you're from America and you live in Los Angeles now and all this stuff. And, yeah, of course, there's benefits to being a white man from America. But if, these days, whatever minority category you are in is an asset, because there are pools of money and there are other kinds of resources waiting for you. I don't have the key to those. So, that you're a woman, that you're doing something about the South, that you're doing some, like that's one of the things that we did with Genghis Blues was when we were at Sundance with Genghis Blues, it's about a blind blues guy you never met in a kind of singing you've never heard of in a place that doesn't exist on a map by two guys who never went to film school. Hell wants to see that film. So when we pitched that film opening night at the opening party, and people would ask us, oh, you're here at Sundance, congratulations, what's your film? And we would pitch it to them, it would go over their heads and they would turn. But then we thought to ourselves, okay, well, how else can we present it? So we sub kind of categorized Genghis Blues into a music doc, a buddy film, an art film, a film about minorities. The guy was blind, so not blind, but disabilities. Then this place was in Asia, but it's also former Soviet Union. So when someone would ask us what our film's about, we said, it's a documentary. What do you do? Oh, I'm not into film. I work in the foreign services, and I'm just here because my wife has a film here or something. Our film's shot in Tuva. Do you know where that is? I never heard about Tuva. But since they work in the foreign service, that's real interesting. Or someone says, oh, we're here with a film about, disabled children. The star of our film is blind. Oh my God, I have to see this film. So we would look for ways that our lead on our film is something that directly spoke to them. We change that up every single time. And if they weren't into anything, but they were first-time filmmakers, so are we. They're from the Midwest, so are we. They live in LA, now we do. Whatever it took, They're from Miami, I love Miami, never been there, I don't care. I find a way to connect with that.
And that's what with the states, everyone has a misconception of Mississippi.
Totally.
And I want that voice of, okay, I'm not talking about civil rights, which I mean, it's there, and I'm not negating that, but I want people to know you can go to the quick stop and ask somebody, where's the best food, or where can I get hot tamales? And they'll say, hey, go over there. And go to this place here.
Yeah.
And they'll be fine. You can ask black, white, whatever, and they will tell you, do not be scared, it'll be great. Or where's the best juke joint, or am I safe? Well, everything is questionably safe, it's just, but ask questions. Don't do the tourist thing. You've got to be in it. You've got to be that. And like you said, traveling, you become a part. You're never going to be in the home, but you become a part of the location.
Yeah. If you see it that way, and I choose to see it that way. That's why whenever I'm traveling anywhere, one of the key things I always lead with is, how can I be of service? So if I can hold the door open for someone, if I can help someone out, if I can help these fishermen bring in their catch as I'm walking down the beach and I'm watching fishermen bringing in the catch, I ask, can I take a couple photos? And then you see they're struggling. So I'm like, hey, can I help you? And they're like, okay. And boom, you're in. Because here's one of the fundamental things I've learned in my travels in my life. If you give somebody something that they desire, but rarely receive, they will highly value it. And for a lot of people, especially when you're, you know, in more remote places, they're almost never seen. They're almost never respected. So they highly desire that, rarely receive it. So if you're able to genuinely, even the smallest act in that direction, what you receive in return is breathtaking. Breathtaking.
Guys, I'm sorry to be the Zoom police, but I just wanted to find like a end point there because I have to use it again for a different meeting. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna have to, I'm sorry, but thank you so much, Adrian and Aaron as well for staying.
Thanks, Adrian. Nice
Thank
speaking
you.
with you.
Aaron, do it. I want to see it. And you know,
yeah, and I'll try
find
and
me on
find you
stuff.
on Facebook. And
Yeah, let's
whatnot.
chat.
So, okay, all right.
Diane,
Bye-bye.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Adrian. Stay in
Take
touch.
care.
Let me know when you're in Hong Kong next.
I shall.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Happy weekend.
Thanks.